Hey everyone, it's finally race week. That's right, I have a race, Shropshire Middle Distance Triathlon. So, as part of race week, I want to release a few videos covering a few key race topics. They're going to be nutrition, hydration, bike setup, gear selection, and today's video is going to be about pacing and my goals for the race. So, let's jump in. Pacing strategy. Let's start with the swim. But first, I just want to say I've got the window open because it's bloody warm in here. So there might be a few background noises like a grinder and then the trams kind of rolling past every now and then. The swim. The swim's going to be a wetsuit swim. I roughly know around the time I'm going to swim, but there's always a few variables on the day that you can't account for. I registered for the swim as a 1:45 per 100 meter time, which is 35 minutes. It's a 2K swim, and the way that they've done it because of COVID, it's a staggered start. So every 10 seconds, an athlete will go. My start time for the race is going to be 7:48:10, which puts me in 20th place to begin with, basically. So it's going to be a bit of a strange dynamic there. I did a swim test recently with the wetsuit on, and I actually swam significantly faster than a 1:45 pace, but you never know exactly how accurate the GPS watch was. So I'm hopeful that I'll swim at about a 1:40 pace. Things have improved in that swimming department for me, so I'm crossing my fingers. A 1:40 pace will be something I'm happy with. And that will land me at a swim time of about 33 minutes and 20 seconds. Next part is T1, transition 1. Honestly, don't know what that's going to be like. I'm an absolute rookie when it comes to racing, to be honest, especially ripping a wetsuit off. I've only ever done it once in a race. I've got down here roughly 2 minutes 30 for transition based on average times for swim to bike. So, bike pacing plan. This is where things get a little bit more interesting because you've got a lot of data like heart rate and power that you can work towards, and then you've got things like wind conditions, hill gradients, or ascending and descending. So that's a little bit more technical. Got all written down here. I'll just give this is kind of what I've gone through. So I'm working off an FTP of 280. For those that don't know what an FTP is, it's your functional threshold power, or AKA your lactate threshold. It's essentially a number that you, in theory, can sustain for an hour of effort, and that would be a hard hour, by the way. So, working off 280 FTP, it's roughly that in aero as well. If you don't know what aero is, I'll chuck a picture up now, and aero is a lot harder to sustain and maintain position throughout the course of a long race because you're folded over a lot more. Generally, it makes it harder to breathe a little bit. It's uncomfortable. It increases your heart rate and things. But I have been training my aero position for a while now, number of weeks, I guess maybe even a month. But it's still pretty uncomfortable, to be fair. But you gotta do it. So, aiming to hold aero for the duration, and because it's roughly a half distance Ironman, my intensity factor is going to be about 85% of that, or 0.85. So my power target, if it was perfectly flat, no hills whatsoever, like no wind, I would aim to hold 238 watts, and that should get me through fairly comfortably for a roughly 2-ish hours of riding. But it's not flat. It never is. And there's wind. There's other competitors. There's variables on the day. So I have in my head anything of a 6% gradient and higher, so steep hill, I'm going to put out up to my FTP, but not over. I don't want to build up too much lactate in my legs, and that also makes your body start to burn, or completely and solely burn glycogen rather than using fat as a fuel as well. This is an endurance race. I want to be able to hopefully be burning some fat along the way so I don't bonk 3-4 hours into it. And that scale comes down. So, for example, if I'm at a 1% grade, I'm going to increase my power a little bit. I'm not going to stay at 238 watts. I'll push it slightly. So 1% or 2%, I might go up to 250 watts. And the same thing for a headwind. If I'm going into a headwind, I'm going to increase my power by 5%. So I'm going to go to 250 watts. And then on the opposite side of things, if I've got a tailwind, I'm going to drop my power to 226 watts. So that's minus 5%. And the reason being is the faster you go, the more power it takes to overcome the drag. Generally, at higher speeds, and I've got it written down here, I think at 48 kilometers an hour or faster, 90% of your power is overcoming aerodynamic drag. So overcoming the wind resistance, essentially. So I've got it at 16k or slower. I'm going to sit up. That's kind of where the aerodynamic benefits are lost. So if I'm going 16k or slower up a hill, I'm going to get out of aero, and I'm better to open up the body and relax, open up the lungs, not be so hinged, and hopefully they can control the heart rate a little bit better as well. Coast on the steep downhills, so essentially don't even pedal, especially if you're going above 48 kilometers an hour. Just tuck a lot more, maximize aero position. And then the final one is heart rate. I've got a maximum heart rate that I don't want to exceed. My max heart rate is roughly 195 to 200 potentially. I think I've got a threshold heart rate of about 170. So I've put a cap on my heart rate at 155 beats per minute. I don't want to go over that because that's starting to dip into the whole lactate threshold department, and it is an endurance race. I need to last for a while. And naturally there's going to be a pacing strategy where I want, it's a 2-lap bike course. Actually, I'll bring the bike course up now for those of you that watched my previous video. That was my little one where I went to Ellesmere and I did a bike recce, so I do know the course and I know what to expect and where to push and what the corners are like and how rough the road is in some areas and how nice it is in other areas. But I'll chuck it up again. It's a 2-lapper of a 38k course, so it's not a full like half Ironman distance, which would be 90k. I think this one ends up at 76 or 78k, and so I want to negative split it. And what that means essentially is that because it's a 2-lap course, I want my first lap to be slightly slower than my second lap, which means I would have paced correctly, giving me some juice left in the tank for that second lap. One other noteworthy thing on this bike is it's a non-draft legal race, so that means for age groupers, well, I mean there is only age groupers in this race, there's no professionals. It means that you've got to have a 10 meter distance between your front wheel and the rider in front's front wheel. And if you initiate an overtake, you've got, I think it's 25 seconds to complete the overtake. It's an interesting dynamic, and I definitely prefer it that way because it means that there's no tucking in and hiding behind other athletes and getting a free ride. It means you have to do the work. As for an expected time on the bike, I've got it in here on a triathlon calculator. Let's say if I average 36 kilometers per hour, I can probably finish in a time of around 2:10, which would make sense because in the bike recce that I did when I gave it a bit of jandle on the second lap there, I did a 1:05 in a roughly similar distance. Although my power that I put out on that trip round, on that lap, was lower than the power target that I've got written down here. I think that was something like 220 watt normalized power, and then in this one I'm aiming for a 238 watt normalized power. So I think around a 2:10 bike time could be realistic. Moving on to T2, it seems that bike transition from bike to run is a faster transition. There's no wetsuit to take off or anything like that. Just slide your feet out of your road shoes or your bike shoes and chuck your helmet on, get your running shoes on, and normally you've got elasticated laces for those, so you just slip them right on. Put socks on though. I'll be putting socks on for sure. I don't want any blisters or anything like that. And I've got that written down for around 2 minutes, and going off last year's results in T2 times, that seems reasonable, to be honest, if not more on the conservative side. Now, the run. So my run pacing strategy, this one is totally up in the air. As many of you probably already know, if you follow my Instagram and things like that, I'm nursing a calf injury, and it's a massive pain in the ass, to be honest. So my run mileage has been massively decreased in the last kind of 3 weeks. I haven't had the intensity that I would like. It started off as shin splints, and then I literally think it turned into a calf strain of the soleus muscle, and it's been challenging to say the least. I'm extremely fit, there's no doubt about that. I don't have quite the run legs that I should. Um, I think all things going well, I can run, say, a 4:05 pace. And it's only 20Ks, it's not 21.1, it's not a full half marathon. So it's 20K. So a 4:05 pace would land me at 1:21:40. So it's an ambitious time, put it that way. I'm aiming for anywhere between 4 to 4:10. Honestly, I just don't know. Um, and it could be close to that, or it could be a total blowout, because my calf might flare up. I've taken precautions this week. I haven't run since Friday, and it's now Thursday, so 6 days off. I might run tomorrow. We'll see. It is feeling better. It's definitely feeling better. I don't have this pain when I walk anymore, and it's coming right, but I don't want to risk it. I might do a little stride out on Saturday, even one day before the race, and we'll see how that goes. But I think at the moment, the only thing that's holding me back from success is this freaking calf. So it's probably better just to stay off it. I've got the run fitness. I can push through 20K. It's not going to be a problem. What will be a problem if I do a proper calf tear or something, and then that just totally takes me out, and then I've got Outlaw X in 3 weeks, and the race season that I've been waiting so long for then capitulates, and I'll be a depressed mess. Before we talk about goals for the race, the run course. Now that is it's a two-lapper, 2 laps of 10K. It's relatively flat. There's like out and backs. I'll chuck it up on the screen, but basically, give me a second and I'll bring it up for my own sanity here. Run map. So you go out and back, and then you do another out and back in a different direction. So for spectators, it's going to be great. You're going to have a lot of passes. It's very flat. Although I look at it now, it isn't actually that flat. There's some hills, some calf burners potentially. It is what it is, to be honest. So we've got my pace, hoping around 4 to 4:10K, pace. Heart rate. Now the first 10K, I'm aiming to have my heart rate about 160 to 165 beats per minute. And to put that in perspective, I have a threshold heart rate when I'm running it of 179. So technically that's, my lactate threshold heart rate. I should be able to maintain a 179 for an hour. But this is an endurance race. By this point in time, I've already been racing potentially 2 hours 40, 2 hours 50, who knows. So it's got to be a little bit more conservative. So I'm aiming to go 160 to 165 beats per minute in the first 10K. From 10 to 15K, I'm going 165 to 170. And then in the last 5K to the finish, I'm going to just give it what I got, empty the tank essentially at 170 beats per minute. So who knows how I'll be feeling though. I might have stuffed up my nutrition. I might have got a sore calf, or I might be wanting to run to the toilet. Who knows? I'm an absolute rookie when it comes to triathlon racing altogether, to be honest. And now I'm doing a middle distance race, so we'll see. Now moving on to race goals then. Technically on my calendar, this is a B race. My A race is Outlaw X in 3 weeks' time at Thorsby Park. Now this is earmarked as a bit of a tune-up, and because I'm a triathlon rookie, it's going to put me in a situation I've never been in before. My first essentially middle distance triathlon. I'm going to give it a really good crack and probably do the best I can, because I'm partially treating it like an A race. Unfortunately, my lead up to it hasn't been what I wanted with my calf injury, and so this this taper hasn't been a traditional taper, and yeah, we'll just see what it turns out to be after that. Anyway, so my goal time, if all things go to plan, if my pacing strategy works out, we've got a swim time of 33:20, T1 2:30, bike 2:10, T2 is 2 minutes, run is 1 hour 21:40. That's a total time of 4 hours 09:30. So 4 hours 9 minutes 30 seconds. Now, what does that mean? We can look at last year's results, and those are the only ones available. But there's so many variables. They might have had an amazing day in terms of weather and all of that, or it could have been a rubbish day. And yeah, I just don't know. But it gives us a gauge of sorts. So if I have a 4:09:30, I'll bring up the results on the screen now. Technically, that could put me in 4th position overall. And that's amazing. I'd be happy with that, honestly. But yeah, who knows? Who knows what the conditions were like? So my goal would be to finish top 3 overall. I'm not looking at it in age groups necessarily. I mean, sure, I'll have a look at that post race, but I'm looking at overall. I would love to get top 3. That could be far too ambitious. Then my secondary goal would be top 10. If the race goes well and goes and my calf doesn't hold me up or anything, I'd be really satisfied with top 10. And saying this though, because of the COVID situation, there's a lot of people out there that would normally be doing races overseas and around the world, and it's possible that there's some big guns that haven't been able to race anywhere else, and so they've signed up for this one. That's definitely the case with Outlaw X. Outlaw X has come out and said that they've got their strongest and almost biggest named field they've ever had, and so there could be a lot of people who are in that Outlaw X race doing a tune-up just like I'm doing at this one. So at the end of the day, I think I need to treat this as a B race. I'm going to be giving it everything that I've got. If I can get top 10, if I can get top 3, amazing. But at the end of the day, this is my first middle distance race. As long as I race within myself and give it the best that I can on the day, the result's going to be what it is, really. But let's aim for a sub 4:10. I think that'll be pretty sweet. Is to video the event and some of the parts of the build up and the aftermath, and we'll see how we go. I'll have Ali's help to do that. It could be difficult. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.